Tigers, Gamecocks. It's a crossover episode of Locked On LSU and Locked On Gamecocks. Hopefully Chris Marler doesn't cry about penalties from last year. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked On LSU and Locked On Gamecocks. Thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. And as always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, Mazda sweats every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward Mazda Move and Be Moved. I'm Matt Moscona of Locked On LSU. He is Chris Marler of Locked On Gamecocks. But I guess you could be locked on anything because you're a fan of like 17 teams. How does that work?
Here we go. I was wondering how long it's going to take for you to bring up me complaining about the refs from last year or that part. This is the second day in a row I'm filming with one of my bosses. So, the players sweat every detail. I'm sweating mostly everything as well right now. So I'm very excited, though.
And we're just talking about the game. Do South Carolina fans still hate me for pointing out how much of a giant group of whiny, ninny losers they are?
Matt, I think it's so crazy that you would assume it's just South Carolina fans, for one.
Fair.
No, I think there's some
contextual.
The whole thing with the game last year, I think this is just a program that has not really ever had that breakthrough. And you talk about before those 3 straight 11-win seasons. You're talking about a program that had you can count on one hand how many 9-win seasons they had. So anytime they come that close and it feels like something went wrong, it kind of, reverts back to everything sucks. The sky is falling. But maybe it ended up being one of the best things that could have happened to them because they turned the season around shortly after that.
I do actually have a tremendous amount of respect for that fan base because they and I do not mean this as a knock. I mean this legitimately. For the relative lack of success that program has had historically, they are an incredibly loyal fan base. I can remember watching Lou Holtz's winless team,
right?
And Williams-Brice was packed. I mean, they support their team. That is they really are a very. I've always had a great time when I've gone to games in Columbia. I mean that sincerely, but the complaining about last year was incessant and stupid.
That's fair. Real quick though, and you know this. You taught me this now that I'm living in Baton Rouge. You talk about the day games in Death Valley and in Tiger Stadium, how it's a bazillion degrees. What makes the South Carolina thing even more impressive from the fan base is they're not getting a ton of night games. A lot of these are these 12 o'clock starts and a bazillion degrees heat. So you're not wrong when you say that.
It is interesting though, because the way Carolina finished a year ago led everybody to have large expectations about that team this year. Mm-hmm. And to be sitting where they are already with 2 conference losses, it's just got to be massively disappointing. And when you look at what's ahead, I know Carolina fans know the schedule. For LSU fans that don't, basically every game remaining is against a team ranked in the top 10 until the final 2 where they have a layup, and then they have Clemson, who might by that point be highly ranked again. So when you look at the big picture of Carolina for this season, how do you gauge the importance of this game Saturday?
Yeah, I think what's wild is you just brought up the only team outside of the top 10 is LSU, and they were in the top 5 the last time they played, right? It's just it's a recency thing there. It's a gauntlet, but I think it also has kind of shown the rest of the conference. As soon as that kind of came out this week on social media, you saw other people from other fan bases and media kind of raising their hand, being hey, yeah, we have to do that every year too. It's just kind of run of the mill here in the SEC. I think with this game, it doesn't feel like it's the sky is necessarily falling if they lose. You're on the road. You're in Tiger Stadium at night. I mean, we all know the history there it's the toughest place in America to play. It doesn't make what happens next any easier. I look at this game a lot like I looked at the Alabama game last year, which is you were 3-2 going into that game. You had a pretty heartbreaking loss. You had come off the bye week against Ole Miss. You get beat 27-3. You had a close loss against Alabama where you were right in that game. And foundationally, you were able to build on some things that kind of propelled you for the rest of the year. I think there's not a ton of South Carolina fans going into this game expecting a win. I think they are expecting it to hopefully be competitive. And I don't know if that's, a fool's errand or not, but I will say that I think that is what the expectation will be. Now, if they go into this game and they lose by 14 plus, it's going to be a tough sell for the rest of the year for people to buy back in.
So you have an interesting perspective because, if you're listening and watching, don't know. So Chris works with us at LouisianaSports.net. He's our SEC writer. So he covers the league, but lives here in Baton Rouge. And so has been at LSU practices and press conferences and helping us with that coverage. So you've seen a lot of LSU.
Yeah.
You cover Carolina day to day. So it's interesting because as you look at this matchup, both teams have just struggled offensively. That is just an objective truth. They are both ranked. South Carolina's 100th in scoring offense. LSU somewhere in the 80s. They're 15th and 16th in the league in rushing offense. So we have all these theories about what's gone wrong with LSU offensively. What has gone wrong with South Carolina offensively?
I think you're giving them too much credit. I think they're. I was talking to Hunt about this, our other coworker the other day, and he was bringing up they're 92nd in scoring offense and how bad it is. That's where they're ranked highest in their offensive categories. It's 92nd nationally. That's how bad it's been. Where it's gone wrong is I think coming into this season, I looked at this offensive line and I've said, you've given up 41 sacks 2 years in a row. You did it once with Spencer Rattler, who's not exactly mobile. And then you did it the same thing the next year with LaNorris Sellers, who is the epitome of a mobile quarterback.
Yeah.
It can't get much worse is what I thought. And it has somehow, or it's just as bad. Maybe there hasn't been an improvement. And the frustration is everywhere else on this program or in this program and on this roster and position units, you've seen some sort of growth. You've seen development, whether it's they bring in 3 stars, they bring in kids from the portal that are kind of overlooked, and you've turned them into either NFL draft picks or very productive players. You haven't really seen that at all on the offensive line. And it's arguably where you have some of your highest ranked recruits, Josiah Thompson, a former 5-star. That's where they've gone wrong. I think there's a very big lack of creativity in the run game for one, and they are refusing for the first 4 games, especially, to allow LaNorris Sellers to use his legs hardly at all. And what's weird about that is you're talking about a kid that we all know how good of a runner he is. LSU fans remember last year, that last play before halftime with the 75-yard run. The first play of the year, first touchdown of the year was a 15-yard touchdown where he trucked somebody into the end zone. Going into, I think, the Missouri game, he had 24 carries for 45 yards. A third of it came on that run. That can't happen with this. You have a bell cow. He happens to play quarterback. You want to keep him safe and not injured, but you have to utilize him. And I think the lack of creativity from Mike Shule in the offense has been, along with the offensive line, the biggest detriment so far to them progressing at all.
Yeah, that Sellers touchdown against Virginia Tech it was the first drive of the season. That's his only rushing touchdown of the season. And then when you look at the scoring offense included in, it's all scoring, but it's 6 non-offensive touchdowns. So it's just hard to imagine as I look at storylines in the game. We'll talk about some individual players in a bit, but it's hard to imagine Carolina getting right offensively against the LSU defense. So I flip it and I go, well, the same question then I think exists for LSU's offense, where it's a lot of the same issues. I know there's been all this conversation about Nussmeier's health. My contention has been that it's less to do with Nussmeier's health because we have seen him look physically right. He looked right physically against Southeastern. I understand it's an FCS team. I'm not saying because they scored 56. I'm saying because we saw him throw a deep ball with accuracy. We saw him throw across his body. We saw him ripping it. It doesn't matter who you're playing. Either you can physically do it or you can't. I think the bigger issue has been the fact that LSU cannot run the football.
Right.
And when you can't and don't commit to running the football, what they've seen now is predominantly drop 7 and 8. And I don't care if it's Joe Montana against the Little Giants. If you're trying to throw against 8-man secondaries, everybody's double covered. There's just no clear passing lanes. And that's what everyone is doing until LSU shows that they will or can run the football. So how do you think LSU, what do you think their opportunity is Saturday to run the ball against Carolina?
One, I'm shocked that you had a Little Giants reference.
It's old. It's an old movie.
It's very true.
Great reference. Come out in the last 15 years, I got no shot.
That's right. No, but I think that what you said, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's not just running the football. It's committing to and being intentional with how they run is what's been most surprising to me with LSU. We talked about that game against Ole Miss. They come out and that was the worst rush defense in the SEC by 30 yards and going into that game. And they only had 3 attempts to the running backs in the first half. That was very surprising to me. They only had 2? We sure?
One, I know what they were. One was a draw to Caleb Jackson on 3rd and 20, and he got 10 yards. and the other was a loss of a yard by Juwan Johnson. Those are the only 2 rushing attempts by a running back in the first half.
I got a tweet I need to delete then. Imagine that. But no, I think
Nobody cares.
Well, yeah, what's wild about though is I do get the feeling just from being around the players at LSU this week and like being around the building. For me, this is all speculation, but it feels like they are going to try and prove a point that they can run the football no matter what. And I don't know if that'll be the case or not, but like I think that's kind of playing into more of a strength for South Carolina. Not that their run defense is as good as it was even last year, but I think that's probably where their strength would be. And you're potentially making LSU one-dimensional. And if they can make LSU one-dimensional, they have a shot in this game only because no one in this conference can win being one-dimensional. And even if you have as much talent as LSU does, we saw it against Ole Miss. Like I mean, they got 6 dudes at receiver that can run a sub 4.4. They got 12 in the rotation that I would feel comfortable with, like throwing out 13 or at least 8. And I think that like the inability to make people be honest in like on defense. I mean, Pete Golding, like you said, putting 8, just dropping 8 the entire time and still not being able to run. I think you're going to see them try to make a concerted effort to run the football. I don't think that that's necessarily the path to beating South Carolina because it kind of plays into their weakness becoming a strength.
The most perplexing thing about the Ole Miss loss for LSU, as you mentioned, Ole Miss is not a good defensive team, which is a commentary on how bad LSU's been offensively. They had a good plan, and I think LSU did not counter that plan very well. But LSU against that run defense, which you just mentioned, remember there was no Caden Durham. That is an important caveat. They did. South Carolina fans remember Durham last year. He had his breakout against Carolina last year, that game in Columbia. But there was only 2 times the entire game against Ole Miss where LSU ran the ball on consecutive plays. 2 the entire game where they ran the ball on consecutive plays. You know, Carolina against Kentucky, Shane Beamer talked about it this week, in that second half ran 14 of 15 plays to ice that game.
Right.
Like sometimes there is being intentional about we're going to go do this and try to big boy you. And LSU hasn't done that. We'll see if this is an opportunity for them. And I do think part of that does dovetail in one of the personnel conversations we'll get to as we continue here. It's Locked On LSU and Locked On Gamecocks crossover. Stay there. It's almost the weekend, so time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most, so let's break it down. Well, Marler, neither LSU or South Carolina played last week, so who delivered in the bye week?
DoorDash did. I'll tell you that. This is like the best ad, I think, of the year. Them doing a streak to where if you keep ordering every Saturday, it's great.
They've got me hooked. I ordered Wingstop last week for lunch, and then I ordered Rotolo's pizza for dinner from DoorDash.
Haven't tried Rotolo's yet. I'll have to try that out.
I went DoorDash twice last Saturday, lunch and dinner. When LSU has an open date, I'm just a big fatty sitting around eating whatever I want. That's what I do. And DoorDash, and just like the Tigers and the Gamecocks, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. I will. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. And we are brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here. FanDuel has offers that you don't want to miss right now. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. You can build parlays. You can try player props. You can follow live lines during the game. Marler has his big picks energy. So if you want to lose on Marler's picks, you can go do that.
Hey, we had winning weekend. We had a winning weekend last week.
You had one?
Yeah. I had 4.
You finally had a winning weekend?
It was one bad weekend. I went like 2-9, but we're good other than that.
Fade Marler. That's what I'd like to say. And you can do so at FanDuel. So what are you waiting on? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today to get started. Again, visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. We were talking about the ability to run the ball. One thing personnel-wise, and we talked some of the personnel matchups that I'm interested in is what LSU is going to do at left guard. They've had a big issue, obviously, on the offensive line, like we've discussed. Looks like Paul Mabenga, the starting left guard, won't play. And the most likely thing that LSU is going to do is play Cohen Eccles, who's actually been rotating with Mabenga at that spot. They've almost played the same number of snaps this year. But Carius Kern is interesting. For the benefit of your audience, he's a freshman 5-star. He was the number 1 interior lineman in the country, 6'5", 320. He can do a backflip. He's one of those just physical anomalies. And they've been running him almost exclusively at tackle. But Brian Kelly said this week that he may get a look at left guard. And as they're looking for options to be more physical, better on the offensive line, I think Kern is one of their best 5. It's just a matter of where does he fit in. And Saturday, we may get a look at 57 at left guard. And if they do you see LSU becoming a left-handed running team, running away from Dylan Stewart behind Kern and Tyree Adams? Like, a little game within the game that's sort of nuanced, but that's something as a guy who played. I mean, look, I played in high school 25 years ago, but as an offensive lineman, there's some things that I look at how you structure a run game and things like that. And that's one of them. If you want to neutralize Stewart, do you run right at him? You can certainly do that to keep him honest from flying up the field. Or do you just say, we're not even messing with him, we're going the other way? And you could become a left-handed running team in that instance. So something worth watching with Kern. What about the Gamecocks? How are they health-wise?
Well, I want to piggyback on that for a second, just because to put it in
you can just ignore my question. That's fine.
For South Carolina, though, you brought up like to put it in perspective. He's Darius Gray, and LSU fans know who that is too. The recruit that ended up going to South Carolina, but he's a bigger Darius Gray, number 1 inside offensive lineman in the country. I think what you said is true, and then I'll push back on one part of it. I think it's not running away from him. I think they'll become left-hand heavy. I think they will also try to run directly at him a lot, though. I think that, like, you saw Missouri have a ton of success with that in their run game, and Ahmad Hardy is built a little bit differently than a lot of other running backs in the country. But I think that they will try to run at him from
Hardy from Monroe. Like, how does he end up at Missouri and not at LSU? Like,
probably because they give him the ball.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, they gave Caden Durham the ball last year. There was no thought that LSU wouldn't try to run the football.
Yeah, he was going into the season. He had the best odds to lead the SEC in rushing. I remember telling you at media days, I was like, if there's a way to bet against that, I would love to find it, because they seem to throw the ball a lot. Now back to your question that I already forgot, which was
on brand.
Yeah, very on brand. What was the question?
Injuries for South Carolina.
Yeah, I think the 3 offensive linemen being out is obviously not great. I keep saying this, and I'm not. Yeah, I mean, you have Hay and you have Henry. Yeah, the right tackle, the center, and then you also have Marquis Anderson out.
Has the center been out already, or is this the first week the center's out?
He was out against Kentucky too. So here's the thing I keep going back to. Like, Henry, from a PFF standpoint, and like, I don't know what goes into all those numbers. I don't even pretend to know. It's an enigma. But Henry has been good. He's been their best offensive lineman, which is not to be rude to Henry, but it's not been great in either way. So Josiah Thompson, again, you keep expecting this kid to be a little bit better, a little bit improved. He has been thrown in the fire as a true freshman, but you are going to be down probably 3 guys. There's more depth on the offensive line this year, but it hasn't really gotten better, like I already said. And I think the biggest question for me is, like, if those – I don't think those 3 are going to hamper you, only because it's already a bad unit. It's already a bad unit, and I think you go into most of your game planning, especially against a defensive front like LSU, trying to plan a way around that in the first place. And I think the other part of it too is, let's not kid ourselves. Like there's going to be sacks. There's going to be sacks that South Carolina is going to give up, and LaNorris Sellers is probably going to be running for his life on several moments on Saturday night. I think the biggest thing is, can you give him enough time for some of the plays downfield to develop? Because you saw it against Missouri. If you watch like any of the tape on that, it's like there were guys that were open. Shula had schemed guys like open downfield. He just had no time to throw them. So do you plan around that? Do you start to figure out screen games or something like that? Or do you have someone else, that's more involved, maybe that hasn't been in the receiving game? And here's the biggest thing too, Matt, is that, just as well as I do being around LSU and this team specifically, part of the field will be shut down on Saturday night because of Mansour Delane. That's how good of a job he's played at cornerback. Who else is going to be able to step up for the receivers at South Carolina to figure out a way to get any sort of chunk plays or plays downfield?
When you were speaking, I was looking for this number because you were talking about Sellers and the pressure he's under, and he's been sacked a lot. So I had, let's just say someone who would know, share this statistic with me. LaNorris Sellers currently has the highest average time with the ball in his hands of any SEC quarterback at 3.29 seconds.
Yeah.
He holds the ball for longer than 2.5 seconds on 70% of his dropbacks, which is the highest in the SEC. One of the big reasons Sellers is taking so many sacks is, like, objectively, he holds the ball too long. Now, is that because they don't have guys that can get open? His decision-making is slow? I don't know. But that is something worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah.
And he's not a big check down guy. So if he's sitting back there and holding on to the football and LSU decides they want to get after him, which Blake Baker is wont to do, I think they will, especially against, as you're pointing out, an offensive line down 3 linemen. They'll get there. The thing for LSU defensively that is worth noting, LSU did have a really impressive defensive line rotation.
Yeah.
Gabe Relaford is lost for the season with a shoulder injury, so their 4-man defensive end rotation, which basically they were just rotating fluidly. Those 4, that became 3. They against Ole Miss, Dylan Carpenter only played 9 snaps, so it really that 4 is now 3. And then one to watch is Ahmad Bro at defensive tackle. He popped up on the injury report this week, and Brian Kelly never really addressed it. But if he's not there, then your 5-man defensive tackle rotation gets limited. Or maybe we see Buddy Mathis, a true freshman, take some of those reps. But Tigers could be down a couple of guys, and they're very good and very talented, very deep. But that the depth may be challenged a little there if those 2 guys don't play.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes this offense for South Carolina dangerous, like you and I talked about this.
I'm sorry. You said the thing that makes South Carolina's offense dangerous?
That could. The only thing that's good, the only positive thing about this offense.
Sure you said the thing that makes this South Carolina offense dangerous. There was no qualifier.
Poor phrasing. No, but like
it could make the offense.
I like that better. We go through all the numbers, and I did this I saw it with Hunt, our coworker I referenced again. Going over just some of the numbers of like this offense, like where they rank 92nd in scoring offense, they're like 117th and worse in rushing offense, in yards per carry, in sacks allowed, like all these different categories that are important. Like the one thing they're ranked in the top 50 in is yards per attempt. LaNorris is, I think he's averaged around 10.2 yards per attempt, or around 10 yards per attempt this season. As a team, it's around 9. That's like the one bright spot, but that's only because of plays where he is able to somehow evade a pass rush or not get taken down on the ground, pop back up, roll out, and then somehow complete a deep ball. That feels like they're going to, like, that's not a recipe for success in any game to depend on that, but it feels like they're going to have to hit on multiple plays like that if they have any chance to stay in this game.
Let's get through. Is there any other players that you want to talk about that could be significant?
I think either Vandrevius Jacobs or Nick Harbor is going to have a big game, because one of them is going to get shut down by Delane. The other one's going to have a big game.
We haven't mentioned special teams, which we always need to mention. We talk about the Gamecocks because they're very good in that phase. And it's not, people talk about the blocks all the time, but even like the Kentucky game, I mean, you could speak to this, but like they faked a punt on 4th and 12 when they were up 2 scores. Like, you never know when it might come.
Right.
In the many ways that they try to steal a possession or affect the game. They're very good at that. LSU's been good on special teams as well this year. Damian Ramos is a 4th-year place kicker. Aaron Burrell is automatic as far as touchbacks. They got a transfer punter, Grant Chadwick, who has been outstanding this year, and Varian Brown, Xavier Thomas in the return game. Like, LSU has been, under Brian Kelly, up until this point, LSU has been very bad, like objectively bad on special teams. Like, you look at special teams efficiency rankings, and you're talking about rankings in like the 90s and the 100s.
Right.
This year, they are talented and good in every single phase in special teams. So if a team can steal a possession or affect the scoreboard on special teams Saturday night, I think it'd be really interesting. Yeah.
I mean, I think also the big thing is how much of that do we see from Beamer, where it's like you kind of throw everything that you can at trying to win this game. And the other part, too, is even on their own side of the field, Clayton White's defense has been really, really good, not just at red zone defense throughout his time there, but forcing turnovers in the red zone. They've led the SEC in turnovers forced for the past 4+ years since he's been there, but especially in the red zone with their backs up against the goal line, they've been really good, too.
All right. One thing left to do is give predictions. We'll do it next. Crossover episode, Locked on Gamecocks, Locked on LSU. We'll continue. This episode is brought to you by Mazda, moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. Well, for LSU against Ole Miss, there weren't a lot of highlights that moved the game forward, but there was a very cool touchdown reception by Nick Anderson off a deflected pass. Maybe for the Gamecocks, a good offensive day against Kentucky, right? So there were opportunities to move the game forward.
Well, I think they had 14 points off non-offensive touchdowns again.
Yeah. Moving the game forward is everything but South Carolina's offense
fair.
far. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like that, there's more to every highlight. There's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. I always like to ask for like a blueprint. So if we're getting like a score, like what do you think is the blueprint for Carolina? Like how does the game need to go if they're going to pull the upset?
Oh man. Well, the refs can't get in the way. Just a joke. No, I think they have to figure out a way to keep it close.
And like most of your jokes, it didn't land.
Okay. I wish I didn't cackle at that. I think the big thing here is you've got to figure out a way to make LSU feel uncomfortable, because I do think there's a little bit of seed of doubt in the fan base of whether or not this team is as legit as we all thought they might have been at the start of the season. And so if you can somehow get fans, to sit on their hands a little bit during this game, and it's a little less quiet or a little bit less loud than usually a Death Valley Saturday night is, I think that's key for one. You've also got to figure out a way to make sure that you're turning LSU over, because I know it's very cliche to sit here and say, whoever wins the turnover battle usually wins. But under Beamer, especially when they are even or plus in the turnover margin, they are winning games at an average of like 81.3% or something like that over his time. It drops to around 22% when they are negative in that. So very, very good defense. LaNorris Sellers has never, I hope I'm not jinxing this, he's never had more than one interception in a game as a starter. He's had multiple turnovers, but never more than one interception in a game. This cannot be DJ Lagway, because South Carolina does not have that kind of defense that's going to keep them in a game with multiple turnovers. You saw it against Vanderbilt when they had 4. I think they only have 4 all season, but they had 4 in that one game, and it was a blowout. So those are the keys, I think. I think, like I said, also they're going to have to hit on some either broken or chunk plays that go for a touchdown, because if they get stopped short of the goal line, even on a 60, 70-yard play, there's no telling if they're going to be able to punch it in.
I'm glad you brought up Lagway in the Florida game. And for your audience who maybe didn't see that LSU game, LSU beat Florida 20-10, and they intercepted DJ Lagway 5 times. So it was a game where they scored. And by the way, one was a pick 6. So the offense scored 13 points on a day where they had 5 turnovers. And after the game, Brian Kelly sort of that was when he got chippy in the post game. And he defended their path to winning the game. It's like we did what we had to do to win the game, effectively saying we knew Florida was not going to move the football, so we weren't going to give them an opportunity to be in this game. So they played ball control, they played defense, they didn't attempt a 4th down conversion, they punted brilliantly in the game. It was very Milesian. It felt a lot like I remember LSU played a game against Auburn in 2012, maybe the awful Auburn year.
They were bad.
Yeah, and post game, and LSU won the game like 12-9. It was atrocious. And Miles post game was like, hey, the way that defense is, punt it again. The way that defense plays, punt it again, punt it. He's kept saying, punt it again. It's like that was the plan that Kelly had against Florida. Now Kelly was asked about that this week. He's like, are you still trying to play a little more conservatively, lean on your defense? And I'll paraphrase, but he effectively said, like, the time for that is done. We've got to be more effective offensively. So do we see LSU get a little more aggressive? Because I do think this is a game with the struggle South Carolina has had on offense, with LSU being at home, as good as the defense is, LSU could do that. They could lean on defense, field position, try to break through offensively and win a close game the way they did against Florida. But you can't win a championship that way. Like, that's just not going to be sustainable. And if this team fancies itself as a team that wants to do more than win 8 or 9 games and actually compete for a championship, they've got to get going offensively. And this 3-game stretch with South Carolina, Vandy, Texas A&M is where they got to show they could do that. Yeah. So you know what you're playing for in November. So that's sort of the game within the game for LSU. But really, the stat you got to look at that we're all going to be looking at is the run game. I know they want to hit big plays in the passing game, and that those will be there because LSU's talented on the outside. The opportunity will be there. I mean,
yeah.
But it's all predicated by your willingness and ability to run the football. Like against Ole Miss, LSU threw 34 passes and ran it 22 times. You just cannot have that imbalance because it allows defenses to do what Ole Miss did, which is drop 7-8 in coverage and muddy up the passing lanes and make it really difficult to find open receivers. So can LSU run the football kind of is the ticket. I think LSU is going to be fine defensively. I can't see Carolina coming in here putting up 30 points. But what do you think? You got a score?
I sat there all week and I kept getting kind of buying into that game last year was awesome. It was one of the best games of the year. It was great down the finish there. And I was talking to Gordy Rushmott on the show yesterday, and he kind of said something that triggered like I wouldn't say the fear unlocked, but it was the rational part of my brain that I have not unlocked this week, or most times really. But the part where you talk about this thing, well, if LaNorris plays in in the second half last year, you saw what he did to that defense. If they don't have this play go a certain way or blah, 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 there's all these what ifs that you lost a 3-point game. The one thing that is, I don't care if LaNorris plays for 60 minutes, like that whole argument thrown out the window. That LSU defense is not this LSU defense, and this LSU defense is one of the best defenses in the country. I think it's a big uphill battle. I think I have in our Winning and Boozing article that I put up today, LSU 30, South Carolina 17. I think you get a couple stops maybe in the red zone for the resultant field goals for LSU, but I think it's one of those where LSU is going to be they either pull away late or they are comfortable for most of this game because of how much better they are defensively.
So you said 30-17?
Mm-hmm.
I picked it for LouisianaSports.net on our survey, 27-17 LSU. So we're comparable in scores. I know everyone wants to see the LSU offense explode. At this point, I can't predict that until I see it. Because if you didn't do it against Ole Miss, why am I going to believe it's going to happen against anybody? I mean, it can. Nussmeier was a 4,000-yard passer a year ago.
Yeah.
And you have proven weapons. Aaron Anderson, Xavier Thomas, Barry Brown, Nick Anderson. I mean, Caden Durham. You've got talent. Your offensive line has not been good, and it has limited everything you've tried to do offensively. So until I see LSU go have a big day offensively and show they're capable of this team is capable of doing that, I can't. It's the inverse of what you just said about the defense.
Right.
This defense is objectively nowhere near what they were. Last year, they were awful. They went in the portal, they spent $18 million, and now they're a bunch of dudes. But they're a bunch of they went and bought an NFL defense. They're way better. If you're thinking last year, don't think last year because this ain't last year.
Right.
But same on offense. That offense last year was one of the best passing offenses in the country. This one is not. So until I see that, I'm not going to believe they're going to get going offensively. So I think this probably will be a little tighter game throughout than most are anticipating, just because I don't think LSU offensively has shown the ability to distance themselves. So I hope it happens, but I think you're probably in a tight game. Maybe a late LSU score gives them that margin, but I pick LSU 27-17. I just think Carolina doesn't have enough offensively. Same. Like I haven't seen Carolina prove that they can go get going offensively, especially against a good defense. So Tigers and Gamecocks, you can read about it at LouisianaSports.net. How about that? What are you pointing to?
Oh, your hat, but I was in the wrong side. There you go.
You pointed the wrong direction.
I got my U. It doesn't fit my fat head, though.
There you go. You pointed in the wrong direction. Yes, but LouisianaSports.net. Anything else you'd like to say to the people?
No, that's it, man. I enjoyed it. I appreciate you doing it. And that's all I got.
All right. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. Let a friend know if they love the Tigers or the Gamecocks. See, this is how you point to the correct direction. The Gamecocks. Subscribe to Locked on LSU or Locked on Gamecocks. It's your team every day.
It's tough.